Welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today I am joined by Joshua Coombes. Hi, Josh.
Hey, oh, really lovely to be here. So nice to see you again.
I am so excited because we are connected. We're both friends with our friend, but also you are from our local town of Exeter, which is just so nice because it just feels super special when it's like quite a close town. We grew up with the same sort of people, went to schools like
Definitely.
next to each other.
Oh my God, yeah. So many connections. I remember, I don't know, being at football games with your brother stood next to me, like when I was younger. And yeah, we were in the same circle there or thereabouts with like when it's Exeter is obviously a bigger city now, but it felt
Yeah.
like definitely a lot smaller place when we grew up. So no, it's I'm super happy to speak to you. And yeah, and I always hold Exeter really fondly in my heart, even though I travel a lot now when I go back because my family's still there. So it's always a special place for me.
Yeah, it's funny because it's funny you just said that about the big city because as I was saying that, like, oh, we're from the same in a little city, I was thinking, well, it's definitely not little now, it's huge. And you don't feel
Mm.
like you know people now, but back, 20, 15 years ago, you felt like you knew everyone in the city.
Which had its benefits and also yeah, so sometimes there was some negatives, so that's there too. But you're right, it felt like a village then, but way different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also so excited because your journey over the last few years has just like been phenomenal. You have a book
Mm.
out, which is incredible. So just tell us then a bit, because there could
Mm.
be people listening to be like, okay, so who are you? So what do you do? So just tell us a bit about yourself.
Of course, yeah. So, well, my I guess it's good to start, thinking about Exeter and like where I grew up without going into like full life story. I'm someone who came out of high school without any GCSEs, and I failed, college as well. And, that kind of led me to playing music for many years. I really felt like a great sense of failure when I was younger after leaving school. And I think now looking back, that wasn't an easy experience. I actually had kind of dyspraxia and ADHD when I was in school. I was diagnosed with, and there wasn't really the tools to help kind of with that sort of stuff in the same way as there maybe perhaps is in some, arenas now. And yeah, I had a lot of kind of feelings of being on the fringes myself, really. And luckily I found music and started playing music with some people where I grew up and got into a band. And that was kind of really the next 6 7 years of my life until my mid-20s. And I really enjoyed that. It was awesome, and worked all kind of jobs to fuel that. But then I actually found hairdressing in my mid-20s. So I became a hairdresser. I walked into a Exeter salon and asked for a chance, and thankfully, yeah, really gratefully, they gave me that. So becoming kind of a shampoo boy and training at mid-20s was a really like humbling experience. But I found out with hairdressing straight away really what my main skill set is in life, which is me and this kind of thing that I used to get told off for in school, which was being really social and talking to people and building those kinds of relationships. Obviously, training to do hairdressing was really difficult, and from the outside, I probably thought I could walk straight in and start doing it. But that was a really amazing part of it, the creative side of the industry, and being able to give someone that as a service in the salon. But it was kind of that one-on-one talking to people, being with people. That role as my like as a hairdresser, I realized my role was more than just making someone look and feel good and handing them the mirror at the end. It was about building relationships. um so I worked in that salon for a few years, which is where we know our mutual friend, one of my best friends in the entire world. She's amazing. And then yeah, after a few years of doing that, I transitioned and took that skill I had, or I'd got to do a bit better out on the streets, and started cutting hair for people who are experiencing homelessness. And that wasn't this thing I'd thought about a lot, really thinking, oh, here's this idea, I want to go out and start doing it. It was just something that was playing on me, because I think we all see homelessness in different cities and towns that we live in, where other people are living into, listening to this. And it's something that I think has become normalized in a lot of places, and you sort of get used to it. But I just feel like it was something I was so curious about. I was always just looking at the statistics, feeling awful about it, feeling like how in cities of such affluence, and how in a country that economically, is obviously in a really difficult place now, but it's it's something that we can surely do so much better at. And seeing people directly suffering on my way to work and wherever I was going with friends, it was something that I just couldn't ignore anymore. And I was buying a cup of tea for people or a cup of coffee, dropping some change, the things we all know how to do in those few moments we might have. But one day I had my bag with me, with my stuff, like my scissors, clippers, everything I need to cut someone's hair in my bag. And I saw this gent and stopped and had a conversation and asked him at the time, I remember this moment, it just sort of clicked, this idea, because he had his hair really grown out and clearly he hadn't had access to the kind of amenities that we may all be used to each day. And asked him if he wanted a haircut. And in that moment, when he said yes, that was a really life-changing moment for me. It may sound quite simple, but for the first time, I was able to like sit for an hour and I've set up my things on the curb where he was. But it was that listening, showing up for a person who can often be like really isolated, sometimes invisible, thousands of people walking by them each day. And I saw how much that meant, just someone stopping and giving them a bit of time, like treating them as a human being. Again, like these things may seem so obvious, but if you're in a position where you feel once removed from the rest of society, like your mental health, it can have such a detrimental effect on all of these things. So, when I gave him a haircut, I remember it was like just this two things happened really, which was that recognition of how important my time could be, and also the skill I had to make someone look and feel a bit better and feel more dignity and more self-worth. But on a personal level, it felt like I just took a step on this other path in my life that felt much more authentic to where I should be and where I'm going to go. And this was about 7.5 years ago now. And it's led me to all kinds of different things and places, that I could, go into. But it really defined a moment that kind of changed things for me.
I cannot keep up. Every time I see Helen, I'm like, where is he? Where's Josh? Oh, here, there, and everywhere, literally.
Yeah.
But how incredible that, like, from this new, I mean, what is it's not even a job. Like, what would you even call it? This new sort of like way of life for you. You've managed to experience so much.
Yeah, it was from working in the salon Exeter. I then moved to London and started doing this a lot more there, and traveling to different cities. And yeah, really, I was kind of relying on friends at the beginning, because obviously it was like the more I did this, the less I could work and earn money. And on the face of it, on paper, like that's in one way I was walking into this much more insecure position, because it's like less money, less ability to pay rent, to do whatever I want to do, more time spent, much more time spent giving my time for free with people who need it. But it's so weird. I felt more infused and passionate than I'd ever felt to continue. And it was like, so actually it wasn't, looking back, a difficult decision. The more I went out and did this, I met like all kinds of different people, men and women who were in like just all different walks of life. And like this perception of what homelessness looks like, it just made me realize within a few short months, I was like, these stories are really important. And this is about not just homelessness, this is just about humans and like the way we feel and the way certain things can happen to us. And all these themes started running underneath all these stories of people that I met that like can happen to anyone. But I wanted to start having a human conversation around it, because I feel like it can be so politicized, whether that be homelessness or people seeking asylum and refugees. It's like, it's about human beings. And like, until you sit down and listen to a person and hear their story, it's not the point of thinking you have any idea about it or any idea. So I wanted to start talking about these. I started posting on Instagram, and that's really kind of what led me to different places. I started to talk about people with a before and after photo that I take. So, before and after the haircut, it can sometimes be this really big transformation, because you might have someone who hasn't had a chance to like get their haircut for years, and that was this way I started communicating this online. It drew a lot of attention because it's this, as I said, really big transformation, sometimes visually. But the hope was you'd read onto someone's story and get to know them. And actually, it was Hells who came up with this hashtag I started using.
Oh my
Our
gosh.
friend,
Yeah.
do something for nothing. I
Yeah.
remember saying to her, speaking to her, saying, this isn't just about me and this person and homelessness, and like I want this to be something people can join in with. And I started leaving each post on Instagram with these words, "Do something for nothing," and that was really, yeah, just it was so cool because it meant it kind of created this little space on social media that other people could go, oh, maybe this is for me also, and people started to post different things. Maybe they knew someone in their community who was doing something similar, or it was them actively going outside in their community. We had, mums and their kids going out with food bags at the weekend and talking to people on the street too. And, students going into an elderly person's home or someone who might not have any family who come in and see them and just sitting down and having some lunch with them and having a bit of time and conversation. People directly using their skills also to join in with this. And it was just this kind of thing that was this ripple, it was just started rippling outwards to people in different cities and even in different countries. And yeah, and I guess to answer your question, like it became sort of, my job was this founder of this movement now of people, sort of this swell of energy of people who were emailing me directly on Instagram or my inbox, wanted to find out more, wanted to get involved. And it just was this natural progression where I ended up leaving my job in the salon after like not all that much time when this really grew. And I started my job now really, as far as how I get paid, was I started to give talks about this, which has become like just as much a part of the work I do on the street. I'm super passionate about that. I go into schools and companies and businesses, and I get into kind of I guess the the deeper stuff with all of this, and the message that I talk about online with Do Something for Nothing, and really what's kind of some of the pillars of that, our time and how important that is, and sort of treating that as a commodity if you don't have anything. Because even if you only have sort of 20 minutes a week, like I've seen how much that can mean to someone if you check in and stop for somebody who, as I said, is otherwise ignored by everyone else in their city that day. You get to know their name, you get to know their likes, dislikes, the things that make them tick, because they're a human being after all, not just this charity case. They're somebody who once had all these hopes and dreams, and they're sat, right where they are on the street. Or it can literally be, it sounds so simple, but like we're all in this time right now where, even though we have 100 people on our WhatsApp we might talk to, we can still really be in this time where we do suffer in silence. And it is a bit of like I think a loneliness epidemic, because people are scared sometimes to reach out when they're in a bad spot. So it might be a phone call to a mate who you haven't spoke to in a while, and just being more aware of how much that can mean. Like, when someone really actually calls you and goes, "Hey, how's it going? I just want to like check in with you. What's going on?" So the message is
something weird going on.
Yeah, I know, but it seems so. I mean, everyone has their friends and people they chat to, but when someone really turns up and wants to be present and listen to you, it's like, wow, that can really just give you that bit of hope or give you that bit of support. So yeah, it became about all kinds of things, this movement, and giving talks is a big part of it too.
Yeah, amazing. I do remember it so well because, like you just touched on, Helen reminds me that it was her that came up with the hashtag.
Oh no, she's got yeah.
She's waiting for her what do you call it, commission. But actually, it's amazing because you could have kind of come up with a hashtag that was very much about your skills in hairdressing and doing that. But because you use the hashtag something for nothing, I remember seeing it when it first came out and thinking, well, what can I do? What skills have I got? What can I give? And I think that is just so powerful that everyone who is interested and is reading your content and reading your stuff, you do have a reflection of, okay, because we think we go to work, we do this, we do that. And we, sometimes we give money to charity when we see things going on, and that's amazing. But when do we stop and think, okay, should I just do something for, like say, something for nothing?
Yeah. And that is it's amazing, because the reason why those words work so well, do something for nothing, is like there's one side of it where you go, oh, okay, I clearly know what that means, which is giving up some of myself, my time, or having some moments in my week, my month, which aren't a transaction of money and aren't something that, is just within that world. But then it's also funny because in some ways it's a bit of it's just a reminder too as well, because the truth is it's not really for nothing, because what I talk about is how important It is to just tap into that part of yourself that we all have, all of us, because we're humans and we're hardwired for this connection with other people. And whatever all the layers of your life are, demanding job, status, and things you're kind of ambitious and goals you're setting to move towards, and all those things are really important. All of those things are your drivers for whatever your passions are. It's not about giving them up. And also it can look like somebody who might have a really difficult time maybe caring for someone or bringing up kids as a single parent. But like, we're living in a time right now where going to knock on your neighbor's door to borrow some sugar is like out of fashion. That's kind of feels like it's pretty much gone. I mean, most people are scared to go and knock on someone on the street and say, "Hey, how's it going? I'm 3 doors down. My name's Josh. How are you? Let's have dinner sometime." People will be like, "What do you mean? No way!" Like,
Yeah.
it's like, this is something that even in cultures like, I'm in Mexico right now, and like, it's obviously vastly different, the DNA of the culture here, how people are and interact with one another each day, and a family setting and how that looks like here. But even in a bit more of a kind of reserved culture like the UK, we're not decades off from a time where we still, even in big cities like London, would have known the people who might live on our street, had a bit more connection with your broader community, people having more awareness on one another. And what that brings is something I think that's really fundamental for all of our well-being, because when you're suffering and someone's having a hard time, you suffer together and you have a support network. And it's closer to what humans, evolutionary speaking, are, programmed, how we're programmed and what we're programmed for, which is to live in smaller communities where we live together, we bring up one another's children together, we work together, and we have to share, because otherwise they wouldn't have survived. We wouldn't be here today. Yes, there would have been conflicts with other tribes, and there was some really violent stuff that happened too. But, essentially, a human alone would have died. We needed one another. And this may sound like I'm getting into really deep stuff, but it echoes into what happens in society now. When you see someone, whether that be with a roof over their head or living on the street, who's completely isolated and no one else is aware of their life or their problems or what's going on, you're missing this huge part of what is fundamental to be human, to give and receive with other human beings, to have connection, touch, awareness, all those things. And it's no wonder it's detrimental to people's well-being when they're isolated like that, whether that be, as I said, like, in the comfort of their own home or in a much more vulnerable position. So yeah, all of this stuff I talk about and get into kind of deeper messages with what lies underneath some of these things. And it's a broader conversation around our mental health as a whole and kind of how we live in modern society. But just to sort of round that off, I think it's really important to say that I don't think the society we live in is broken. I think it's just dislocated. And I think it's important to not focus on the negative side of things, because I think these thoughts, the way that you think about things, it becomes your reality each day. And what I say to people when I go and give a talk and people say, well, how can I do something? I don't know what to do. I haven't got a skill like you have where you go out and cut hair and it's this really tangible thing. I talk about more just a mentality shift of how you walk out into the world each day, right? You either walk out with kind of openness, expansiveness, kind of, open to interactions with people around you, including strangers, still keeping like healthy boundaries, which is so achievable as part of this state, but it's a loving state. It's a loving state of going, you know what? Yesterday's yesterday. I can't change any of that. No more looking in the rearview mirror. What is ahead of me? Imagine if you could reset and forget about all of which are really important, these problems that we have. It's not about ignoring them, but who do you want to be? How are you gonna, like, what energy are you gonna give to this world? How are you going to be to the people around you? And I honestly think that's such a secret, because once you realize that and you start trying to embody that each day, you have a chance every single day to start living a new life in some ways. You have a chance every single day to say, all right, yesterday was shit. I had a really bad day, but how can I walk out in the world today? Who can I be? How do I want to kind of live and treat other people? And then I think it's about that reciprocity, because it really does come back to you then. You know, your reality can either be in fear and scared about all the stuff that's going on, including other people around you, including the enemy, you know, over here that we're told about, that's whoever coming to our border, or climate change. Again, all these things can really cripple you with anxiety because they're real. The problems and the suffering is real, but all of those things are just going to keep you on the sofa and make you feel like shit and make you feel scared. You have to still try and find a space to operate with love and joy, and find try and find that within each of us. I think that's the kind of the secret.
Yeah, definitely. God, there's so much you're saying. I'm like, oh yes, oh yes. Like, but going back to the village, there was always that saying, wasn't there? Like, it takes a village to raise a child. Like, and now that's just not the case. We have, you know, it's just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And also when you said about, you know, your do something for nothing hashtag, it's actually also kind of the opposite. Like, that feeling that you get when you actually, that feeling inside, even if it's like selfish for yourself, just to feel
Mm-hmm.
like that. But like every time I've kind of like taken the clothes to somebody else that needs it, or, you know, done that stuff, I leave feeling pumped. I'm like, I love it.
Yeah,
Just going with those clothes or those people. Like, it gives you like such an adrenaline rush.
of course. And you know that if someone could listen to us right now, they'd be like, you know, this is just playing devil's advocate because I like to do that. And it's like someone could be like, well, yeah, look at you guys, you know, getting all excited about, oh yeah, how well you're doing, patting yourself on the back, giving to other people. And
Yeah.
what I'd say to that is I'd just be like, yeah, that's one way of looking at it, right? But the other way of looking at it is here's some more of an anecdote to like take it down to the street level of how this looks for me sometimes. The amount of times I've been spending time with somebody who has literally been living in the gutter. Sometimes in America, when I do this in lots of different cities where I have here, or India, or wherever I've been in the world, where I've been with my backpack, my scissors, sometimes I'm in absolute squalor with somebody who has nothing and has a really poor level of reality and the conditions they live in. But still, in those moments, there's people I meet who would give you their last. If they had some food, they would share it with you. If they had something to give you, they would what happens, I remember, is actually it happened specifically with one person where I had this real big learning where somebody for a few times someone would try and like give me some little trinket and go like, oh, you've cut my hair, so have this little bracelet I made. Or if they'd have even a couple quid, they'd be like, can I pay you for this haircut? Most of the time, it's obviously 99% of the time it's just totally free and I wouldn't want anything from someone. But if someone does want to give me a bit of food, even if I don't like what it is, you know, I don't eat meat, even if it is a ham sandwich or something or whatever, I've learned to accept that and take that from that person, because they also need to give. They can't just be somebody who receives. And as I said, it's this kind of charity case like reality that they might live in, where they're always there going out with a handout because they need this and they need that and they need the other. And that can really strip you away of your dignity. And I just remember this turning point where I was like, I can see that even if you have like really nothing, that still this fundamental part of us that needs to be able to have this reciprocity and this kind of giving receiving circle with the people around us. So what we're talking about here is like, it's not about, yes, I document the work I do, and it's not me having a selfie going, look, I'm handing someone
No.
this sandwich. Obviously that's completely tasteless and tone deaf, and that's, you see that stuff and it's like, yeah, that's not the right way of doing things. I talk about the work I do because of the kind of message and the stories, but I of course get so much from the work I do. And the reason for that is that's not about my personality and the kicks I'm getting from this. It's the neurology, the brain chemistry that like isn't, I'm in no control of, because I'm just it's part of our DNA, our humanity. So of course you get a kick from the work you do when you do that. And yeah, that's might not be the primary reason to take you out to go, right, I'm gonna go out and help some poor people because it's gonna make me feel really good.
Yes.
It's like, no,
Yes.
that's crass and like horrible. But it's okay to recognize that if you've got some time and you're
Yeah.
gonna go out and give yourself to your community in some way, and that can look like so many different expressions of that. Of course, it's gonna fill up your cup as well. And I really do think that actually it can be, I mentioned earlier, like the missing link for certain people, else, honestly, whether that be in like a corporate setting, somebody who's working a high flying job, or somebody who's a startup and like a small business, or anyone who's working in any kind of setting. It's like if you have a relative level of comfort, I've heard this from so many people who might have walked the walk and got to where they need to be and maybe got a secure home and you know that again is quite rare in today's society, but maybe they have the things they need around them, but their life, it's like something's not clicking, like they're not, there wasn't the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that they'd expected here, which was whatever success looked like. And I really think that that's where you've got to look at what your fundamental needs are beyond just yourself, your nuclear family, your friends and family. It's like when you get out of that and you go and, you know, give yourself to people whose life might look and seem a bit different than your own to begin with, but you can really grow there. You can really receive a lot that I think can bleed through to the other areas of your life. And I think it's about fulfillment. Yeah, in another way, which I've just seen. I've seen how it can really change people as well. And it's okay to recognize that. As I said, it's not the driving force, but it's an
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
part of this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the thought that that feeling that somebody is feels better is incredible. Someone that really needs that help. And I think we all get so sucked in, don't we, to just society, social media. We focus so much like on what we haven't got or what hasn't gone well, or should we just follow like what we've been told, the route that we spoke about before, which is like, get a job, get married, have kids. And we focus so much on that actually it's so important to just take a step back and be like, look at really everything else that's going on around us. Like, and I think social media has just, that's why your account is so amazing, because it brings some reality back to life. But social media can be very toxic with the comparison.
Yeah, and you touch on a really good point. You know, it's, you've got to somehow find a way to manage your relationship with social media that becomes more healthy than it is unhealthy. And it's for me, I have a really healthy relationship with it because I've been using Instagram now for many years, and it's been about this message. I can't even remember a time with Instagram. I do for a couple of years where it was just about me and maybe some snaps while I was away on holiday, and actually some of the stuff I was doing in the salon a little bit before I started doing this. But when it became not about me and it became about a bigger message, and that can still mean you and your face and you talking about something, but obviously like we have these incredible voices now, when you follow the right people who, okay, it's them and it's their word as they see it, and through some different kind of platforms you can filter it. I think it's okay to filter it in a way that feels healthy for you, following things that feel like they're going to be conducive to your well-being, rather than open up your phone and it, because it's all energy. Any way you look at it, that energy coming at you, want a certain type of energy, it can really have a negative effect on you. So the other thing that I've learned is also, I've had some negative comments over the years, not many. It's incredible the support I've had for the work I do. Like social media really grew for me in the beginning, and there was a lot of press stuff. And when it was like press stuff, you always get everyone coming in from all sides. Ultimately your social media account is, you can choose to follow or unfollow. So if someone doesn't like what you do, hopefully they won't stick around and be a troll for too long. But there's been times where I've had those moments where someone's come at me with something, and I just really learned just to completely disengage. Now, some people have maybe the time, or they're not as attached to having some funny argument, and they can stay in a good space. But I just know if I engage in those kinds of things, I just lose so much vital energy I could spend elsewhere. And it's just like, it's just not healthy for me. And someone could say, oh, well, so you only get back to nice comments. It's like, no, I don't only get back to nice comments, because I want to start dialogue and have healthy dialogue. And that's about speaking with people who disagree with you. And that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
But not somebody who is being rude,
Yeah.
because I also in life, if someone was rude to me in the street, I'd be like, see you later. But on
Yeah.
social media, you feel like it's like, no, I'd walk away from you in the street because you've just been really rude for me. So I'm not going to spend my time and energy doing that. But, it is something, it's just an important thing to acknowledge. And I talk about that when I go into schools and colleges and stuff as well. And it's like, this I really hope is something that people can look to when I go and I give talks about this stuff. It's just showing other ways that you can use this for a message that's beyond you, that then has this positive effect, not in the world and making whatever change that is that you want to, or you feel like you can. It's for you. It's like it no longer becomes about your self-worth being all wrapped up in the social media app and how many likes you get or don't get, or views you get or don't get. And it's like, wow, I'm so glad that I am not part of the work I do in a way that's like it doesn't affect me at all, like on a personal level. As far as like it being wrapped up, I'm like, oh yeah, the algorithms are really weird. And if one post gets no likes, I'm like, well, that's nothing to do with me and what I'm putting out there. It's just, so it's like, you just got to have this education in your head about going like, yeah, you just remove yourself from that, wrapping up any of you in it, and then you're good, I think.
Yeah. That was a lesson I had to learn with my Instagram account. The first 6 months, it was like trying to do what Instagram wanted and how do I get this engagement. And now I, like you, I'm
Right.
just like, I don't care. I don't check who watches my stories. I don't do anything like that. I just post my message and walk away. But yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah, it can be a nightmare. And going back to that about your comments about people saying negative ones, like, I think you clearly are somebody who would respond if it was constructive and it was going to benefit somebody. But actually, of
Mhm.
course you're going to walk away if it's not someone who's being rude. It's not benefiting anybody.
No, yeah, and it's not I would never want to, I'd never want to not keep an open space. I'm really responsive with DMs. I always like try and get back to people, and honestly, it's really beautiful. I was like, people are just I also want to say I haven't got this relationship with it, and I've had to, I think I always think about the polarities of everything. So the polarity of what we're talking about now, which would be like a really negative comment from someone, and the negative side of social media. It's also important to think about if you're getting love hearts and likes and people saying, oh my God, what you do is amazing. It's like, I also am completely neutral with that. I remain in a space where that also is not coming to me to make me feel, it's like, oh, that's nice. Thanks. And that's really how I take, it's not, it's very important also just to detach yourself from that as well, because
Yeah.
I am the measure of, like, I can't get lost in thinking that anyone knows me beyond my Instagram profile. And I'm also a human who makes mistakes and has arguments with my girlfriend and needs to like grow and become a better person day by day. You know what I mean? And I'm really trying to do that work. And that's actually something that, the last couple of years, I think I was really running around for the first sort of 5 or so years with Do Something for Nothing. And it was all about everyone else and talking about all of this stuff and these really important things and getting other people involved. And I kind of left myself parked somewhere, like as part of the process, where I hadn't really focused on my own work and I hadn't really focused on my own shit, really. And like the stuff that I also am still carrying that comes from certain parts and chapters of my life. I've really started to do that over the last couple of years, and it's brought up a lot for me. So, I'm aware as part of that process that even if I post something and someone's like, "Oh my God, this is amazing," blah blah blah, and it comes in all this beautiful love, I know me. The mirror is my like that's where I can find what I need to within myself. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but what I mean is,
Yeah.
like, my happiness can only also be derived from within. My joy can only be derived from within, not externally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I can't look externally for that anymore. And that's what I've realized. It's never going to come from the outside. It can only come from within. Of
Yeah.
course, your life scenario changes and gives you a better platform for that. The level of comfort you have, the ability to be able to do the things you want to do. I can't discount that for one moment. And, you know, that's not easy for me either, because each year it's like, you know, how I'm going to continue doing this is always a question, because I haven't got this kind of secure income. But I just know that all that stuff now is it all comes from within. And I just want to circle that back to what we're saying with social media. It's like you and who you are and your presence and how you feel. It's like this app in front of you, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. It's like that's maybe the best barometer of measurement to sort of work out your relationship with it. It's like I personally feel, this is just my opinion, that your joy or the negative stuff, like you shouldn't be looking for any of those things through that. It's got to be just like almost like an amplifier. Like I look at it like when I used to play music, it's like you can use it as an incredibly important and a really beautiful place to connect, but it's almost like a megaphone to sort of like connect with other people in different places. But I don't think it should be somewhere you should put too much of the positive or negative things, you know, that you take in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that external validation. And I certainly grew up needing external validation for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's only since that, the day that I decided I'm going to get rid of my eating disorder, my body dysmorphia, I realized like it was also connected to that and self-worth. And actually, you touched on the kind of positive psychology earlier, the positive piece. If you don't have necessarily a skill that you can give, just taking that positive, like open approach into life. And actually, like, yes, I had therapy for eating disorder and very sort of technical therapy, but I actually just implemented positive psychology. And I actually think having that positive mindset every day, and trying to give that out was a huge catalyst for my recovery, which anyone can apply to any mental health, to anything that they're going through.
Yeah, and that's incredible. You hearing your journey, where you went on that, because that kind of external validation, it can lead to all kinds of things. I've definitely had that in my life as well. Do you remember what was your turning point then? Like, what was your kind of like moment where, specifically with your eating disorder, you said where you were like, okay, yeah, like that kind of moment where you transitioned into like what's a better place?
Yeah, so I had the moment where I was like my podcast, More to Life, like I can't keep going like this. I cannot live
Mm-hmm.
with these habits and behaviors. And so that recovery went on for a long time. And then then that transition that you're talking about, it took probably about 3 years solidly of
Mm-hmm.
working on myself. And I really turned to spirituality as well. So, and that
Mm-hmm.
bit like positive psychology, it's kind of like merges it into one at times. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, and that kind of like, yeah, the spirituality piece also really helped me. And that was the bit that I realized this is me. And actually I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I don't feel like I've like come home to myself as such, because
Mm-hmm.
we were always forever evolving and transforming and
Mm-hmm.
changing, and we'll still always carry with us those previous traumas that
Mm-hmm.
will continue to need to be healed as we change. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel so much more now just like at peace with myself
Mm-hmm.
and at peace with the decisions I've made. So I've set
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. I've stopped doing a lot of behaviors that I would have done before, like external
Mm-hmm.
validation, people pleasing, all the rest of it. And I feel now like, yeah, right, I've got that feeling of like I'm getting there. I'm getting back to maybe
Mm-hmm.
the person I was born as. Like I just went
Yeah.
off this massive divergent route somewhere.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why recovery is such an important word, because it's about something that I feel is already and still within us. It just depends on how deep it's buried. So it's like recovering a part of yourself, which is you as your essence, you as how you were born on this earth, who you were as a child, until you start to develop and things start to happen to you in certain ways. And I think it can sound daunting, can't it, when people think, oh, a couple of years, a few years, oh, you really have to start like and that's this path that you have to start walking on. So it sounds like something that's, like with all of the distraction that people have, whether that be, like things I used to do, going out and getting messed up each weekend and finding myself still up and, you know, like just having late nights and putting all kinds of things in my body, and or whether that be through social media or whatever it is, there's so many ways to distract yourself in the world right now. And I know that some people, you have to be ready to take that step, but I think the way that I'd like to sort of put out there from my experience anyway is that, yeah, it can be really hard going through a process of change, and really trying to integrate the stuff, the shadow aspects of yourself, and trying to really get to the deeper parts of what the roots are of, like the troubles that you might feel, and the suffering you might have, and the way that plays out in negative patterns and behaviors, and all these things. It's deep stuff, but it's almost like, for me now, I feel happier knowing, or not happier, I feel also just, it's something about truth and honesty. It's something about almost going like, okay, I might be miles away from where I want to be, but at least now I'm on a path where, like, I can see my blind spots, and I can actually go, you know, I'm not trying to bury this thing anymore. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to push it down and push it down, whatever that is. It's like, yeah, once you open the box, Pandora's box, it's like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of shit in there. But at the same time, that's why it has to be in, like, a, in a therapeutic and controlled place, in a way that, is has guidance and maybe mentorship and people around you and a support network. But that can take many different forms. But it just feels so much healthier to be on a path now where I know I'm not ignoring or pretending or keeping those things hidden now.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean the solution's right there, and everything's perfect now. But I think back to a time where it was almost like I had way more ways of distracting myself. But there was this, yeah, there was just this, you can't escape what is this deep feeling within you, where you're like, there's some anger here that I don't know
Yeah.
where it's coming from, or there's some, like, there's these things that keep playing up in my life, relationship patterns, with the
Yeah.
ways that I am and the ways that I am in within those settings, that are on repeat over the course of however many years. It's like, you can keep ignoring those things if you want, and you can keep distracting, but there'll be a time, where yeah, it's going to feel healthier going, all right, something's got to change.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear that you where you've come from and where you've gone with that. It's amazing, honestly,
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah. So just like we'll start to wrap up. One of the questions, I just want to go back to you at the start of this conversation, and thank you for being so vulnerable. You shared that you were diagnosed with ADHD, and you felt like you were a failure. Do you ever, oh, two questions. Have you now realized why you were feeling like that? Because obviously, you weren't a failure, but you felt like that.
Mm.
And B, do you ever get those feelings now that you are a failure?
No, I don't actually. I have a really good relationship with all of that stuff now. I think, you know what it was, just, there's a lot of things wrapped up in that, and obviously it's I'll try and do like the short version. But I think now, looking back, I my concentration in classes was really terrible. I really couldn't concentrate. And when it was something I was more engaged with and more passionate about, yeah, there'd be that passion I still hold today, which is something that I'd maybe be able to engage in a lot more. But I think what that led me to is finding ways to distract myself, having conversations with people. And then there was a bearing down on me from what was a school that was pretty underfunded, didn't really have it was a pretty, you know, not an easy place to go to school, and not that much in the way of funding and support. And teachers were really tired and overworked, and I have a lot of empathy for
Mhm.
them. So it's not about blame or putting that anywhere else, but I just look back and I go, yeah, I my coordination was pretty bad. The concentration was pretty terrible. And I I think what I did was, I kind of actually, after I finished school, I was like, even though I was diagnosed with like mild ADHD and dyspraxia, I left that label behind completely. I went, you know what? That's not me. I'm going to run off into life. I'm going to follow the things I want to do. And as I said, like, thankfully that happened beginning with music, which kind of gave me a lot of kind of fire in my belly. And but now, quite recently, actually, only in the last couple of years, I've realized that it wasn't that was a mistake, but uh, as an adult, I'm reading a book by Gabor Mate at the moment,
Oh, yeah,
called
read it.
Scattered Minds. You have, right? And like, and you know, I'm reading all these pages of this and I'm going, wow, actually addressing your conditions as an adult is really important to better understand yourself. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking of all these relationships. I'm going like, it's not that I would have ever taken account, like I would never, like I'm accountable. I'm Josh. I've still also got free will and choice, and I would never put any of those things like to shelf responsibility or accountability of my actions elsewhere. But to better understand yourself is to also better understand yourself and how you are in relation with people. And yeah, now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I'm gonna start to own that again and really get in and try and understand like what those mechanisms are in my brain so I can better live and better kind of be better for the people around me. But yeah, as far as failure and as far as feeling those feelings, no, I think, you know, I didn't grow up with my dad. I grew up with my mom and two sisters. And I just think what also happened looking back too as well is I didn't have any healthy male role models in my life, really. It's not that I didn't get on with my dad. Now we've got a great relationship. I really love him, and like, you know, we see each other every whatever couple of times a month. And but there wasn't anyone really, and I had a difficult relationship with my stepdad. There wasn't anyone, and then teachers. I saw the grown men teachers who were coming down on me hard with authority as like, hey, like I'm this person who's looked after myself and I don't need to be told anything by anyone. And I just recognize now there was so much wrapped in there to do with the familial setting I grew up with and what authority and as far as like a man's authority is, and I didn't have those healthy role models in my life then. So yeah, there was a lot. Now I look back to school why I felt like very lost and very kind of dejected and a bit disillusioned by it all. But now I'm really feel like I'm walking a path that, yeah, it's not even like there is success and failure. There's just life and your journey, and some things are going to be well received and might shoot you to a place where you feel like that might feel like success as far as how many people are looking at this or how many talks I'm giving each year or the audiences and the numbers and that. But there's also years where things are different and they feel different, and it's not really about that for me anymore, success and failure. It's like just enjoying the journey of it all and knowing that as long as my intentions are good. And just to finish up, I think that's the thing I'm connected with now, is like reconnecting to my intention and reconnecting to like that intuition, you know, like if I'm doing the things that feel authentic to me, the reason why I'm doing them and what my intention is. And yeah, and then everything kind of just flows from that, really. And that's kind of sort of
Yeah.
how I see it now. Yeah.
That is amazing. And I absolutely love what your story about the fact that when you were diagnosed, you kind of just like, I'm not having this kind of thing, and cracked on your life. Because
Mm,
I know so many people, especially of our generation, years
mm,
ago, and it wasn't spoken about. There was, it was kind of judged, it wasn't understood, and
mhm,
I know so many people that just sort of like you just kind of squashed it, and now are like opening it back up again. And I know
mhm,
for me, like I've had such similar journeys with with the sort of neurodivergent, and actually, like someone said to me, in terms of ADHD, use it as your superpower. Like, and for my work,
mm,
I've managed to apply it to certain parts of my work, like just trying to do everything that's actually made it beneficial to me. And
mhm,
it's
mhm.
and to anyone listening to this,
Yeah.
whether it's dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, whatever it is, like definitely like get on board and just start to understand it exactly how you've just shared. It's so crucial.
100%. And that's really so important what you're saying. It's like none of these things are, it's about making your superpower and your strength. And it's it's so hopeful now to see the way that some schools, I feel when I go in and visit them, or like I got really young nephews and they're starting school right now, and it just seems like we're kind of seeing, at least in these little specks of where it's kind of starting to happen, how important it is to let children be who they are
Mm.
and not have to feel like they have to be diagnosed with something where it's something bad. It's just about better understanding who they are, how they operate, and and you know, and then building a bit more curriculum around that and who they are, not trying to squeeze them into this linear way of doing things. because that's not the expression of who they are. They might not be an engineer or becoming one or a doctor anytime soon, but they might be an incredible graphic designer, or they might be like whatever, like an amazing kind of like creative in an ad agency, you know. And it's like, and I say that just because, God, I've also met people who have turned that into their superpower, and I spoke to other people who've been diagnosed with ADHD, and people who are you know, in all kinds of amazing, top, well-paid creative positions. So it's like, this thing isn't you're right, it's none of it's about focusing on a negative way, but you know, now I really hope that, full circle, like from a young person who hated school and felt really uncomfortable in that environment and couldn't wait to leave. I love going into schools and talking about the work that I do, because I know I'm talking to people who are at a certain age who, yeah, it's just about another voice coming in going, hey, here's how I've been doing things, and maybe there's a few kids in the audience who might relate to some of the things I'm saying. And you know, just being able to do that, talk to young people, it's just like, it means so much to me, because I remember those people, those one or two people in school from my experience who said something or gave me some advice that stuck with me, and yeah, I just really cherish that experience of being able to do that now.
Yeah. Oh, Josh, you have been such a pleasure. I could feel like I could talk to you for
Thank you.
hours. Thank you
I
so
know. Well, hey, we'll have to meet up in it when I'm back in the UK. But it's been such a nice chat, and really thanks again
much.
for having me on. I'm
No.
really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. So for people that want to, which I'm sure they will, what's your
Mhm.
Instagram and what's your book called?
So the book is Do Something for Nothing. You can, yeah, Google that, and obviously that's available in lots of different places. And that's a really nice sort of deeper look at more the kind of stories of the work that I do. So there's lots of different people I've met on the street, their stories, the same way I might do on Instagram, but a lot more in depth, and lots of different cities around Europe, around America. And through the book, you get this real one and the same feel through all these stories of just how similar we all are, I think. And even though it crosses cultures and different people, just how we all kind of, yeah, the same things kind of make us tick, and we all suffer the same way too. And it's, yeah, that's kind of available, and that's a really good way to support. And then Instagram, it's at Joshua Coombes and at Do Something for Nothing, and yeah, you can see a bit more there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. See you
Nice
soon.
one. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.